And I think that's one of the reasons that gospel music was so important to him. It soothed his soul because he grew up in.
One thinks they know Elvis Presley. They know the hip swivel, the sneer, the voice that could make a gospel hymn sound like sin. They know the jumpsuits, the movies, the mansion. They know the legend. I'm his first cousin. We grew up together in Tupelo, Mississippi, back when nobody gave a damn about the Presleys except other Presleys. I sat at the same dinner tables. I heard the same family stories. I watched him practice guitar on the porch when he was just a kid who loved music, not a kid who would change music forever. And here's what nobody understands about being family to someone who becomes Elvis. You don't just watch them get famous. You watch them disappear. You watch the person you knew get buried under layers of makeup, mythology, and money until you can't find them anymore. Until they can't find themselves anymore. People ask me all the time, what was Elvis really like? And I used to try to answer. I'd tell them about his laugh, about how he'd do impressions of gospel singers at family gatherings, about how he was shy until he got on stage and then something took over. But after a while, I realized they didn't actually want to know. They wanted me to confirm the version they already believed, the fantasy, the brand. So I stopped talking. For decades, I stopped talking. Because what's the point of telling the truth when the lie is so much more profitable? What's the point of saying, actually, that's not how it happened? When there are documentaries and books and movies all saying something different. When there's an entire industry built on a version of Elvis that I barely recognize. I watched it happen in real time. I watched strangers write books about my cousin like they'd known him their whole lives. I watched people who met him twice hold press conferences about what he was really like. I watched his story get bought and sold and repackaged until the real Elvis, the one I knew, the one who called me on my birthday, the one who cried at his mama's grave, was gone. Replaced by Elvis' trademark, the product, the legend, the lie. And the person who perfected that lie, who shaped it, who polished it, who built her entire life on it, Priscilla, but we'll get to her. First, you need to understand what it means to lose someone to fame while they're still breathing. It started slow. One day, he's your cousin who drives too fast and tells stupid jokes. The next, he's on Ed Sullivan and they won't show him below the waist because his hips are too dangerous. Then he's in Hollywood making movies he hates. Then he's married to a woman who treats him like a project. Then he's trapped in Vegas doing the same show every night like a circus animal. And through all of it, the family watched. We watched him get lonelier. We watched him get sadder. We watched the pills start and then multiply and then become the only thing keeping him functional. We watched everyone around him, managers, hangers-on, even his own wife, take and take and take until there was nothing left but the performance. You want to know the worst part? We couldn't save him because we weren't Elvis's family anymore. We were the family of Elvis Presley, superstar, and there's a difference, a massive difference. We couldn't just show up at Graceland and say, come on, let's go fishing like we used to. There were gates, guards, schedules, people whose entire job was to control access to him. And when we did get through, when we did sit with him, you could see it in his eyes, he was somewhere else. Trapped inside a life he never chose, surrounded by people who needed him but didn't know him. I remember one time, must have been around 1975, I was at Graceland for a family gathering. Elvis was there, but he wasn't really there, you know? He was exhausted. He looked sick. And I watched all these people hover around him, asking him for things, wanting things from him, and not a single one of them said, Elvis, you should rest. Elvis, you look like hell. Elvis, please take care of yourself. Because they needed him functional. They needed him performing. They needed him to be Elvis. And I couldn't do anything about it. None of us could. Because by then, he belonged to the machine. And the machine doesn't stop for family. It doesn't stop for humanity. It only stops when there's no more profit to extract. Which brings me to why I'm talking now. After 50 years of watching the world get it wrong. After 50 years of biting my tongue while people who barely knew him wrote his biography. After 50 years of watching Priscilla position herself as the ultimate authority on a man she was married to for less time than I knew him. Lisa Marie is gone. She died knowing the truth but never being able to fully tell it. She died estranged from her own mother and the world blamed her for it, called her troubled, called her unstable. Never once asked, what did she know that we don't? And now Riley is in the same impossible position her mother was in, fighting to honor the truth while battling people who have decades of practice controlling the narrative. So I'm done being silent. I'm done letting the lie win because it's easier than fighting. I'm done watching my cousin's memory get exploited by people who saw him as a cash machine, not a human being. Everyone thinks they know Elvis, but they know the performance, not the person, and I'm one of the last people alive who remembers the difference. So let me tell you what really happened. Let me tell you about the fame that didn't make him, it broke him. Let me tell you about the people who helped break him and the people who profited from the pieces. Because Elvis Presley deserves better than the legend they sold you. He deserves the truth. There was a specific moment when I saw it happen, when I watched Elvis realize he was trapped. It was 1969. He was about to start his residency at the International Hotel in Vegas. We were backstage and he was packing like a caged animal, and I said something stupid, something like, "You nervous?" And he looked at me with these exhausted eyes and said, "Donna, I don't even know who I'm supposed to be anymore." That sentence has haunted me for over 50 years. Because that's what fame did to him. It didn't elevate him, it erased him. It took a boy who loved music and turned him into a machine that produced music. It took someone who wanted to connect with people and turned him into a product that people consumed. And everyone around him, every single person who should have protected him, helped it happen. Let me explain something about Elvis that the documentaries never get right. He wasn't some natural-born superstar who thrived in the spotlight. He was shy, deeply shy. Performing was the only time he felt confident because he could hide behind the music, behind the character. But the moment he stepped off that stage, he was just a kid from Mississippi who didn't understand why everyone was screaming. And instead of protecting that vulnerability, instead of giving him space to be human, the people around him weaponized it. Colonel Parker treated him like livestock. That's not an exaggeration. That man looked at Elvis and saw dollar signs, and every decision he made was about extracting maximum profit before the golden goose stopped laying eggs. He kept Elvis away from touring internationally because of Parker's own immigration issues. He booked him into terrible movie deals that made millions but destroyed Elvis's artistic credibility. He isolated Elvis from anyone who might tell him the truth about how badly he was being exploited. And Elvis knew. He knew he was being used. But by the time he figured it out, he was so deep in the machine, so financially entangled, so psychologically dependent on the structure Parker had built, that leaving felt impossible. That's the trap of fame nobody talks about. It's not just that you can't go back to normal life. It's that the fame itself becomes your prison, and the people profiting from you become your jailers. Now let's talk about the loneliness, the specific, suffocating loneliness of being Elvis Presley. Imagine this, you're surrounded by people every single moment of every single day. You've got an entourage, bodyguards, musicians, staff, hangers-on. Your house is full of people. Your dressing room is full of people. You're never physically alone. But you're completely, utterly alone. Because none of those people are there for you. They're there for Elvis. They're there for what you can give them: money, access, reflected glory, a story to tell at parties. They need you functional, so they tell you what you want to hear. They enable your worst impulses because saying no might mean losing their spot in the entourage. Elvis had people around him who would get him pills at 3 in the morning without asking why. People who would laugh at jokes that weren't funny. People who would agree with every decision even when it was clearly destructive. Not because they were evil, because they needed the gig. And in all of that, where was someone who would look him in the eye and say, "You're destroying yourself and I love you too much to watch it happen." We tried. The family tried, but we were dealing with something bigger than us. We were dealing with an industry that had billions of reasons to keep Elvis performing and 0 reasons to prioritize his well-being. Then Priscilla entered the picture, and everyone acts like she was his salvation, this beautiful woman who brought stability to his chaotic life. Let me tell you what I saw. I saw another person who wanted Elvis, not Elvis. She wanted the lifestyle, the glamour, the status of being Mrs. Elvis Presley. And I know that's harsh, but I watched it happen. I watched her try to mold him into the husband she wanted instead of accepting the man he actually was. She didn't understand his relationship with music. She didn't understand his connection to his roots, to gospel, to the spiritual side of performing. She wanted him to be sophisticated, European, cultured. She wanted dinner parties and fashion and high society. And that's fine, those are valid things to want. But they weren't Elvis. So you had this man, already being pulled in 1,000 directions by managers and movie studios and fans and expectations, and now his own wife is pulling him in yet another direction, trying to remake him, trying to fix him, treating him like a fixer-upper project instead of a human being who was drowning. And when he couldn't be what she wanted, when the pressure and the pills and the loneliness made him impossible to live with, she left. She found herself a karate instructor and checked out emotionally long before the divorce papers were filed. I'm not saying Elvis was an easy man to be married to. Fame had damaged him. The pills had changed him. He had demons he couldn't shake. But he needed a partner who understood that he was fighting for his life, not a partner who saw his struggles as inconveniences to her lifestyle. Now here's the part that makes me furious. After she left, after she built her new life, Priscilla spent the next 50 years positioning herself as the woman who understood Elvis better than anyone. The devoted wife who never stopped loving him, the keeper of his true legacy. But she wasn't there during the worst of it. She wasn't at Graceland in those final years watching him deteriorate. She had moved on. She was living her own life. And that's her right. I'm not saying she should have stayed in a marriage that wasn't working. But you don't get to leave and then claim you were there. You don't get to abandon someone and then build a career on being their eternal soulmate. The real tragedy of Elvis's life isn't that he died at 42. The real tragedy is that he spent the last decade of his life completely alone in a crowd, surrounded by people who needed him but didn't know him, married to a woman who wanted to change him, managed by a man who saw him as inventory, worshipped by millions who would never see past the costume. And the pharmaceutical nightmare that killed him, that wasn't some mysterious addiction that came out of nowhere. That was the logical conclusion of a system that needed Elvis functional at all costs. Doctors prescribed whatever would keep him performing. Staff enabled whatever would keep him manageable. And nobody, not the Colonel, not Priscilla, not the entourage, nobody was willing to risk the gravy train by saying, "Enough, this stops now. His life matters more than his career." So he died, alone in a bathroom in the middle of the afternoon, reading a book about religion because he was still searching for something, anything, that made sense of his life. And the machine didn't even pause, it just changed managers. You'd think Elvis's death would have been the end of the exploitation. You'd think the people who profited from him while he was alive would have at least had the decency to let him rest in peace. You'd be wrong. Because August 16th, 1977 wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of the real gold rush. And the person who struck the richest vein, Priscilla. Let me walk you through exactly what happened in those crucial months and years after Elvis died, because this is where the story everyone believes started getting written. This is where Priscilla transformed herself from ex-wife to eternal widow, from someone who'd left Elvis to someone who would spend the rest of her life protecting his legacy. When Elvis died, his father Vernon was executor of the estate. Vernon was old, grieving, and completely out of his depth trying to manage the financial chaos Elvis left behind. The estate was hemorrhaging money. There were expenses everywhere, debt piling up, and Graceland itself was costing a fortune just to maintain. Vernon died in 1979, 2 years after Elvis, and that's when everything changed. Because suddenly there was a power vacuum. Lisa Marie was 11 years old. She was the heir to everything, but she was a child. She needed guardians, trustees, people to manage the estate until she came of age, and Priscilla positioned herself perfectly to fill that role. Now, I wasn't in those rooms. I don't know exactly what legal maneuvering happened, but I know the outcome. Priscilla became a key executor of Elvis's estate. She became the voice. She became the decision maker, and she became very, very wealthy because of it. The official story is that Priscilla saved Elvis's estate, that she had this brilliant idea to open Graceland to the public, that her business savvy turned a failing property into a gold mine, that without her, Elvis's legacy would have crumbled into bankruptcy. And on paper, that's true. Graceland did become profitable. The estate did become worth hundreds of millions. Priscilla did make business decisions that generated enormous revenue. But here's what that story leaves out. Whose money was it? Who was the actual heir? And who spent their entire childhood watching their inheritance get managed by a mother who seemed more interested in being Elvis's widow than in being anyone's mom? Lisa Marie. Let me tell you what I watched happen to that little girl. She lost her father at 9 years old, traumatic enough. But then she had to watch her mother take control of everything that was supposed to be hers, not just the money, but the memory, the story, the narrative. Priscilla didn't just manage the estate, she became the estate. She positioned herself as the ultimate authority on all things Elvis. She gave the interviews. She consulted on the documentaries. She wrote the books. She approved the products. She controlled the image. And Lisa Marie, she was the daughter, the heir on paper. But in reality, she was a prop. She was Elvis's daughter, which made her valuable for photos and publicity, but she wasn't the star. Priscilla was the star. Priscilla was the one the media wanted to talk to. Priscilla was the keeper of the flame. Do you understand how damaging that is to a child? Your father is the most famous man in the world, and your mother's entire identity becomes managing his memory. You're not raised by a mother who's helping you grieve, helping you process, helping you figure out who you are separate from this massive legacy. You're raised by a woman who's building an empire on your father's grave, and you're just another asset in that empire. Lisa Marie felt this. She talked about it in her own way in interviews over the years. She talked about feeling used, about feeling like she was never the priority, about how her relationship with Priscilla was complicated, strained, damaged. And what did the media do? They blamed Lisa Marie. They said she was troubled, difficult, unstable. She married too many times. She made bad financial decisions. She couldn't handle the pressure of being Elvis's daughter. But what if the real story was simpler? What if Lisa Marie was just trying to escape, trying to be her own person, separate from a mother who had turned her father into a business and her into a brand extension? The proof is in what Lisa Marie did when she finally got control. In 1993, on her 25th birthday, Lisa Marie inherited Elvis's estate. She could have done anything with it. And what did she do? She limited her mother's involvement. She created distance. She made it clear that this was her inheritance, her father, her legacy to manage. And then, years later, she amended her will to remove Priscilla as a trustee. That's not a small decision. That's not something you do on a whim. That's a daughter saying, I don't trust you with this. I don't trust you with my children's inheritance. I don't trust you, period. But Lisa Marie died before she could fully execute that vision. She died in January 2023, and immediately, Priscilla challenged the amended will. She went to court to fight for control of the estate, claiming the amendment was invalid, claiming she deserved to be reinstated as trustee. Think about that. Your daughter dies. Your daughter who explicitly removed you from her will. And your first move isn't to grieve, isn't to respect her wishes, isn't to support your granddaughter. Your first move is to lawyer up and fight for access to the money. That tells you everything you need to know about priorities. Riley eventually settled with Priscilla. Reportedly paid her over $1 million just to make her go away, to avoid a prolonged legal battle that would have been ugly and public and painful. And Priscilla took the money and backed off. But here's what that settlement represents: 3 generations of the same pattern. Elvis was exploited by people who saw him as a resource. Lisa Marie was controlled by a mother who saw her as a means to maintain relevance. And now Riley is having to pay off her own grandmother just to honor her mother's wishes. That's not legacy preservation. That's a protection racket. And Graceland itself, the crown jewel of the Elvis empire, has never been about honoring Elvis. It's been about profit from day one. They turned his home into a tourist attraction. They sell tickets to see where he lived, where he died. They've got a gift shop selling Elvis keychains and coffee mugs. You want to honor someone's memory? You protect their privacy. You share their art. You tell their story honestly. You don't turn their bedroom into a museum exhibit and charge admission. But that's what Priscilla built. A machine that generates money by commodifying every piece of Elvis's life and death. And she's been celebrated for it, called a savvy businesswoman, called the protector of his legacy. Meanwhile, the actual Presley family, the cousins, the relatives who knew him before fame, who loved him without agenda, we've been erased. Written out of the official story, because we don't serve the narrative, we complicate it. But Benjamin's death in 2020 was the final straw for me. Lisa Marie's son, Elvis's grandson, dead at 27. And I watched that boy struggle his entire life with the weight of this legacy, this curse of being a Presley in a world where the Presley name was a commodity, not a family. The machine didn't kill just Elvis. It's been killing his descendants ever since. So here we are. I've told you what really happened. I've told you about the boy I knew, the machine that destroyed him, and the people who profited from the wreckage. And I can already hear some of you thinking, why does this matter? Why drag all this up now? Elvis has been gone for almost 50 years. Can't we just let him rest? And my answer is no, we can't, because the lie isn't resting. The lie is still out there, still growing, still making money, still shaping how we remember not just Elvis, but everyone who gets chewed up by fame. Let me tell you why the sanitized, commercialized version of Elvis we've been sold isn't just inaccurate, it's dangerous. When we turn real people into legends, when we sand off all the rough edges and package them into digestible myths, we're not honoring them. We're erasing them. We're saying that their humanity wasn't valuable enough. We're saying that the truth of their struggle, their pain, their complexity wasn't worth preserving. The Elvis that Priscilla and the estate have sold to the world is a cartoon. He's the greatest entertainer who ever lived. He's the heartthrob. He's the icon. He's the king. And all of that's true, but it's not the whole truth. It's not even close. The real Elvis was scared. He was lonely. He was manipulated. He was destroyed by the very thing that made him famous. And when we erase that reality in favor of the legend, we're teaching a terrible lesson. That fame is worth any cost. That success justifies suffering. That it's okay to sacrifice your humanity as long as you become immortal. And that lesson kills people. It killed Elvis. It damaged Lisa Marie beyond repair. It contributed to Benjamin's death. And it set Riley up for a lifetime of fighting battles she never asked for. But it goes beyond the Presley family. Every time we choose the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth, we're enabling the system that destroys people. We're telling the managers and the handlers and the exploiters that it's okay, that history will forgive them, that as long as the legend is profitable, nobody cares about the human cost. I think about Elvis all the time. I think about what he would say if he could see what his name has become, and I genuinely believe he'd be horrified. He'd be horrified that they turned Graceland into a theme park. He'd be horrified that his image is on slot machines in Vegas. He'd be horrified that his daughter and grandson are dead, while people who barely knew him are still getting rich off his name. Elvis wanted to be remembered for his music, for the joy he brought people, for the way he broke down barriers and changed culture. He didn't want to be a brand. He didn't want to be a commodity. He wanted to be human. And we owe him that. We owe him the dignity of being remembered as he actually was, not as the polished version that's easier to sell. Now I know what some of you are thinking about Priscilla. You're thinking maybe I'm being too hard on her. Maybe she did the best she could in an impossible situation. Maybe she really believed she was honoring Elvis. And maybe that's true. Maybe in her own mind, she's been the hero of this story all along. Maybe she's convinced herself that everything she did was for the right reasons. But here's what I know for certain. You don't honor someone by rewriting their story to center yourself. You don't protect someone's legacy by erasing their family. You don't love someone by turning their memory into a profit machine. Real love looks like truth, even when the truth is complicated. Real honor looks like protecting someone's humanity, even when the legend is more marketable. Real legacy preservation looks like passing down the actual person, not the sanitized version. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to give you back the Elvis that got lost, the cousin I knew, the man who loved gospel music and his mama and late-night conversations about God and mortality, the man who was funny and generous and deeply, painfully insecure, the man who was destroyed by fame but kept performing because he didn't know how to do anything else. That Elvis deserves to be remembered, not the Elvis on the t-shirts and the coffee mugs, not the Elvis in the Las Vegas biopics, the real one. Riley is facing an impossible choice right now. She can continue the pattern, manage the estate, control the image, keep the machine running. She can make peace with her grandmother, accept the sanitized narrative and profit from the legend. Or she can tell the truth. She can honor her mother's memory by breaking the cycle. She can be the generation that finally says, enough, we're done sacrificing reality for mythology. I don't know which choice she'll make. I hope she chooses truth. But I understand if she chooses survival, because the machine is powerful and it crushes people who stand in its way. That's why I'm speaking up, because I'm old enough now that I don't care what the machine does to me. I'm at the end of my life, not the beginning. And I'm not going to meet my maker knowing I stayed silent while my cousin's memory got exploited and his grandchildren got destroyed. Elvis Presley was my family before he was the world's icon, and family protects family even when they're gone. Especially when they're gone. So maybe it's time we all made a choice. We can keep buying the legend, keep the gift shops open, keep the myth alive, keep pretending that fame is glamorous and success is worth any price. Or we can demand better. We can demand truth. We can demand that the people we celebrate get remembered as they actually were: complicated, human, flawed, real. We can love Elvis enough to let him be human. We can honor him by telling the truth, even when the truth is painful, even when the truth doesn't sell as many tickets to Graceland. Because legends don't need our protection, they're already immortal. But the truth needs defenders. The truth needs people willing to stand up and say, this is what really happened, and it matters. Elvis deserves that. Lisa Marie deserves that. Benjamin deserves that. Riley deserves that. And honestly, we all deserve that. We deserve heroes who are human. We deserve stories that are true. We deserve to learn from the real casualties of fame, not the sanitized versions that make us feel better about our own worship of celebrity. Donna Presley just did something almost no one in that family has done in 50 years. She chose truth over comfort, family over empire. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, if you think legacies should belong to families and not corporations, share this everywhere. Tag someone who needs to hear it. The truth doesn't need permission to be told. It just needs people brave enough to listen and repeat it.